You're listening to the best of Ego Forum Live. Please do not call the number given.
Abortion hurts women. Abortion hurts children, men, and society. Though some courageous women are fighting back.
We welcome you once again to Ego Forum Live with well-known conservative commentator and the author of more than 20 books, Phyllis Schlafly. Yes, Phyllis Schlafly's great American tradition of news and commentary, bringing you the most important issues of our time. Well, do you know about the victories the pro-life community is achieving? Your small-town pregnancy resource center volunteers are performing heroes work, and today Phyllis and her special guest discuss that very work. And of course, we're looking forward to listener input in just a bit, both online on the telephones. Once again, here's our host, Phyllis Schlafly.
And our guest today is Bridget Van Means. She's the president of Thrive St. Louis. It's one of the nation's leading pregnancy resource centers. She's a mother and a speaker. She's worked in this field for many years and is a big resource of information. And tell us, what is a pregnancy resource center and what really do you do and how did you get started?
Well, first I'd be remiss in saying how honored I am to be sharing a table with you. A great legend and leader in this movement. I'm sure that I probably wouldn't be doing this work if you hadn't laid the track before I came along. So thank you so much for what you've done to help shape a pro-life culture in our nation. So pregnancy resource centers, they are, you're right, the volunteers, and I'm not a volunteer, so I'm not self-aggrandizing. The volunteers are doing heroes work. They are offering a Good Samaritan's model response to the abortion issue. So they come alongside women who are experiencing an unplanned pregnancy and then offer a variety and array of compelling services that kind of wrap around that young lady who's frightened and confused and probably at that point deceived. There's a lot of bad information out there, and really creates a scaffolding for the woman to feel empowered enough to choose life for her child. And so miracles happen every day. It's very common each day for a woman to walk into one of our centers or centers all across the country, be absolutely determined to have an abortion. In fact, oftentimes they have one scheduled that day or the next day.
Do you do abortions in your establishment?
Absolutely not. What we are doing is offering abortion alternatives. So we are going to be providing her services and information that we believe will help her choose life for her child.
And do you do sidewalk counseling?
The sidewalk counselors are also great heroes. It's a separate and autonomous movement with a little bit of a different approach, but they're right there outside of the Planned Parenthood and other abortion clinics. They're offering a peaceful, prayerful presence, so they're praying, and then they're also walking right up to the girls and talking with them about their situation and hopefully encouraging them and directing them actually to the local pregnancy resource center. So it's a beautiful partnership.
Well, do you find homes for these babies that the mother doesn't want?
Well, that's what's so wonderful. We have one beautiful life-affirming adoption centers all across the nation that we work with certainly closely. And, you know, the stigma of being a single mom has pretty much faded away. So many times once the girl actually realizes it's a baby, she and her family will actually choose to parent that child as well. So there are lots of wonderful things that can happen from that situation.
Well, a lot of people don't like to talk about it, and I've noticed that a lot of Republican candidates are embarrassed. They really don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
But Rush Limbaugh praised Rand Paul the other day because he stopped the Democrat who was trying to stop him on that issue. And really, it's kind of changed the narrative of what people are talking about on the media. And what he asked Rand Paul about abortion, and what he said was, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, he said, go ask Debbie Schultz if she is for a woman's right to kill a 7-pound baby just before it's born. And apparently he said, well, of course, it's the woman's right to discuss with her doctor and do what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
And he spent the next few weeks trying to back away from what he said, but that's really what he said. And I think it's kind of changed the narrative because a lot of people didn't want to admit it was a baby. It was just a thing. Is that what you find?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting how God will sometimes allow us to trap ourselves with our own words. And so we could say things, and then if you hear them actually from the other sides, directly out of their mouth, it actually amplifies. So it's a pretty brilliant moment for the life-affirming movement. So what we found with our young ladies is they usually walk in absolutely deceived. They've been told from the time they were old enough that that little baby in the womb is just a blob of tissue. In fact, that language has been specifically carved out and used kind of in a brainwashing manner. And so the girl walks in, and here she is. She thinks that she's just going to be removing a blob of tissue the next day at Planned Parenthood. And then we actually provide a state-of-the-art ultrasound image. And then all of a sudden she's seeing the clear outline of a little baby. We're able to show her a heartbeat. She can see that heartbeat, and in some cases even hear that heartbeat. And then the tears start rolling down the face because she realizes it's a baby. And you'll actually see a miraculous transformation right before your eyes as she realizes it's a baby. And then there follows an immediate bond to that baby. And then oftentimes they'll say, I can't possibly have an abortion. What was I thinking? This is a baby.
It is a baby.
Yeah.
And I really think ultrasound has done the job for us.
Yes,
I'd like to
has.
think all of our hard work did it, but I think ultrasound was probably more important.
Yeah.
Because it showed him it was a baby. Of course, when I had babies, I had 6 babies, I didn't have any ultrasound. And I never saw ultrasound until last year. One of my staffers came in with her ultrasound, and I'm just blown away by it.
Yeah.
It is a real baby, and it's all moving around, and
Yeah.
it's so cute and darling. And,
Yep.
And it has changed. It has changed the whole debate.
Yeah, and it's actually pretty stunning. In fact, there's a video that just went viral. I don't know if we have the technology to pull it up online here, but certainly we can get it on our website. There are some parents that are singing to about a 14-week-old baby, and they're singing, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. And every time they say clap your hands, the baby is clapping. Now, how that happened, we don't know, but it sure is darling, and those kinds of things happen. They've seen twins wrestling around in the womb and giggling and laughing and seeming to be laughing while they're dreaming, and all kinds of fun stuff's going on in there.
Well, when women come, what do they come to your center for?
Well, we do a beautiful job of getting right out there through, we know the kids are all looking for their options through the internet. And so we make sure that when they do an internet search, that abortion consultation will come up for us, because we are going to provide her very detailed information about what an abortion really is. We're going to pierce that veil. You know, they think it's just going to be some simple little procedure like a manicure, and we make sure they understand what all of those options are. So when they come in, they are coming in to get good information. And then the other ingenious thing is oftentimes they're coming in for that free ultrasound because the abortion clinics require them to have one, and at the abortion clinic they'll have to pay for it. But for us, they come free. So they think they're coming in to get an ultrasound image that they then think they're going to carry over to the abortion clinic. But the miracle happens in between, that they see that image and then they figure, there's no way I'm going to follow through with this. So
do they have to pay for the ultrasound?
With us, they don't. That is the beautiful strategy. That's the edge that we have. They're going to have to pay for it at the clinic, the abortion clinic, but they don't have to pay for it for us.
Well,
so
have we passed laws
doors
that require the people who do abortions to show the ultrasound?
Well, you know, we are sitting in one of the most pro-life, life-affirming states in our nation. We're number 2, probably only to South Dakota. And so our wonderful lawmakers in Missouri have passed legislation. She has to have an ultrasound image before she can have the abortion.
Well,
so
just seeing that picture is what makes the enormous difference.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
Yep. And then you're doing that in a professional atmosphere with caring professionals who have also, quite frankly, been prayed up long before she walks in. And so we have over an 85% success rate. If she sees that baby, she's going to choose life. And the other thing we haven't talked about yet is we actually have a mobile center parked right outside of the abortion clinic. So she oftentimes is pulling into the driveway for the abortion or for the preparatory services. The sidewalk counselor talks to her. She comes right across the street to our medical unit. We can do the ultrasound right there on the street for her, so it's pretty dramatic.
Yeah, well, that has made an enormous difference, and we certainly thank you. And how many babies do you think you're saving in your clinic?
Well, last year we had 1,513 young ladies choose life for their child through our services.
Oh,
it's a big number.
The guest today is, I'll tell you what, the guest today is Bridget Van Mees. She's the president of Thrive, one of the nation's leading pregnancy resource centers. And if you'd like to join in this conversation, we'd love to have you. The lines are wide open right now at 1-800-736-3202. 1-800-736-3202. Right here on Eagle Forum Live.
You've probably heard that all public schools are mandated to give reading tests, and many parents are worrying whether their children will pass. If you want to find out if your child's reading skills are all they should be, we invite you to give Eagle Forum's first reading test in the privacy of your own home. Any child who has finished first grade should be able to pass this test. It will enable you to find out if your child can really read, or if he has been taught to memorize a few dozen frequently used words and then just guess at other words from the pictures on the page. Eagle Forum's simple test will tell you whether your child is really reading. Don't let your child fall behind in school because he is a poor reader. Call 1-800-700-5228 and ask for our free reading test. That's 1-800-700-5228. And you can see Eagle Forum's first reading test on the website turboreader.com. Look up the website www.turboreader.com.
Eagle Forum Education Center in St. Louis is the headquarters of Eagle Forum's many educational activities. The center houses a large library of 20th century American history, a unique collection of DVDs and CDs, and extraordinary archives. Eagle Forum's publications include Education Reporter, bringing you important news about parents' rights and public school curriculum. Eagle Forum sponsors activities especially for college students and for teen Eagles, including an annual Collegians Leadership Summit held each summer in Washington, D.C. Eagle Forum sponsors 2 radio series, Phyllis Schlafly's 3-minute commentaries heard daily on 550 stations, and This Saturday Live call-in program now heard on 75 stations. Both broadcasts are streamed on the internet at eagleforum.org. Eagle Forum, a conservative organization of dedicated Americans, invites you to visit our website at eagleforum.org.
You're listening to the best of Eagle Forum Live. Please do not call the number given. This is Eagle Forum Live, keeping American families informed for 25 years. And on the docket today, making your city abortion-free. Phyllis and her special guest are ready to take questions, comments from around the country. If you'd like to call in and talk, we're at 1-800-736-3202. 1-800-736-3202. Once again, here is Phyllis Schlafly.
And our guest today is Bridget Van Mees, who runs an organization called Thrive St. Louis. It's a pregnancy resource center. They don't do any abortions. They counsel young women who have a pregnancy and are really confused. They don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And would you agree with me that this drive for abortion is coming from the feminist movement because they think that the power to control the wife within you is, it's part of the empowerment of women that they're trying to get.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There certainly are the foundation comes from that movement, and then other people with their own selfish reasons and motivations have also jumped on the bandwagon, right, with that ideology. And so it's permeated our country across broad fronts, and certainly the medical industry and organizations like Planned Parenthood, who make hundreds of millions of dollars off of these abortions as well.
But in spite of all that, the country is moving more pro-life.
Yeah, in fact,
the polls. Tell us about what the polls are showing now.
Well, there's lots of exciting news. In general, we've tipped the scales, and in general, 52 to 53% of all Americans either identify themselves as pro-life or are really struggling with the issue of abortion. And more excitingly, the young generation,
yes, that's what I was going to ask
the kids
about.
that are coming up in college are definitively pro-life. And I always say, of course they're pro-life. They grow up seeing their own ultrasound videos. Their moms would show them their ultrasound videos. I know I've done that from the time my daughter was old enough to understand, and so they grew up knowing it was a baby in the womb. And so it's been wonderful again to see that impact of the ultrasound image on our culture. The other thing that's happening is that abortion clinics are closing rapidly. More abortion clinics have closed in the last 3 years than have closed in the 15 years prior. So just to give you an idea, 15 years ago, there were about 2,200 abortion clinics and about 700 pregnancy resource centers, and now it's flipped. So, so many centers
of those
are closing.
have been closed because of the law which our people have been passing, which we think is the best law that they can pass, and that is that nobody can do an abortion unless he has hospital privileges within 30 miles. And that's closed just hundreds of abortion clinics.
Yes, it has. It's been very exciting.
The typical abortionist flies into town, doesn't have any approval at any real hospital, and does the abortion and leaves town and leaves the taxpayers to pick up the tab on the consequences.
Yeah, and the girl to have an issue with getting admitted into a hospital when the abortion is botched and she's bleeding to death, and then there's that struggle. So that's been a very compelling, extremely compelling law. So that's the
law that we urge every state to pass.
Yes.
Phyllis, we have a number of callers here on the toll-free 1-800-736-3202. Eagle Forum Live, taking questions, taking comments on 1-800-736-3202. Break the ice in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Here's Daniel.
Hi, Daniel. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. And a quick question.
Are you there, Daniel?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear him faintly.
Hello?
Well, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry for the little difficulty there. Quick question on, have you heard of baby boxes? Because here in Northeast Indiana, there's a state legislator who's bringing that to the conversation. So that's the simple question.
Yeah, so I personally, I don't know, Phyllis, if you have, but a couple of weeks ago, I just heard about it. There was a film from overseas that featured a wonderful ministry where they were having these boxes set up where rather than a mother aborting her baby or leaving the baby abandoned to die, there were these safe boxes that they could leave the baby, and then there was a promise that the baby would be taken care of. And so I just heard that there's legislation being shaped in Indiana that would replicate that concept of the baby box. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, and they are medical devices, basically an incubator like they have in the hospital.
Interesting.
But it also has a automatic notification, like a 911 call, or however which agency would be called and notified, and somebody would be there within minutes.
That's a very interesting concept. I don't know enough about it to make a compelling position, but certainly in principle, it sounds like a wonderful idea.
Okay.
Well, thanks to Fort Wayne. Good luck with your project. One of the things that we have worked on in Eagle Forum is through the political system, because we are a nation of laws, and this widespread abortion has come to us through a very unusual decision by the U.S. Supreme Court. And we're going to have a speaker soon who has shown that even in handing down that decision, the Supreme Court violated every precedent it previously had. And they, for example, never had a trial. And they quoted all these so-called alleged facts about what happened in a pregnancy, and they didn't know any more about it than anybody who wasn't qualified. So we have been doing in the political field, and one of the things we've done and we take credit for, is making the Republican Party pro-life. See, when I started out at the time of Roe v. Wade, the Republican Party under Richard Nixon was pro-abortion. That was the time when the whole country was going through this conventional wisdom that the world was running out of food and we had too many people, and abortion would be a good way to cut the number of people. And in the 1976 Republican National Convention, which was the first one after Roe v. Wade, I was on the committee, and I put in a sentence that we would work for a an overturning of the Supreme Court decision. And then with each succeeding convention, we made a stronger statement. So the one in 1984, which talked about the fundamental individual right to life of the unborn baby, is we think it's very special language, and we've had a big battle time and time again. We've been winning, and we've made the Republican Party pro-life.
So that all is very interesting to me, and particularly to the pro-life leaders that are listening. Can I ask a follow-up question about the Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade? What would be the mechanism? Is there a possibility that we could actually have a trial and bring in evidence like ultrasound imaging? Is that something that you see, or how do you see that Roe v. Wade possibly being overturned?
That's one way.
We have new evidence.
That's right. That's right. And of course, I think the original woman who was the plaintiff in Roe v. Wade has come over to our side and made sense. So do we have another call coming in?
Yeah, you have callers, you have emails. So what do you say we pick up Patrick here, listening to Bot Radio Network?
Hi, Patrick. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. My statement is that we need a president who will enforce the laws. And oldest law in any nation is "Thou shalt do no murder," as Jesus said in Matthew 19:18. And abortion is contract murder. The women contract it, and the doctors, like any hitman, carry it out. And the president's supposed to, according to Article 2, Section 3, he must take care that the laws be faithfully enforced. And we haven't had a president in a long time that enforces the law against murder. And
no, he thinks he can make his own laws.
Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court is not above the law of the land. Article 6 says, "This Constitution and laws passed in pursuance thereof, both shall be the law of the land." And we have laws against murder, and so the Supreme Court, the president should shut down Roe versus Wade because it is against the law against murder.
Yes, that's right, and that's exactly what Senator Rand Paul brought out when he asked the question back and told him to go ask Debbie Schultz.
Yes,
would you be in favor and think a woman has a right to kill a 7-month unborn baby just before it's born? And she said, sure, just a woman and her doctor, they can decide. What do you think about that, Bridget?
I think, first of all, my first reaction is it's obviously very, very sad. We have all of these poor little children who, by God's right, should be protected. The other thing that I just think has happened is that our opponents have themselves backed into a corner now, and so they're grasping and willing to even make idiotic statements like that to defend their position because they're backed up against a corner, and there's going to be a high price to pay when finally the truth prevails. The Word of God tells us that the truth will eventually prevail, and gosh, there's going to be a lot of blood on a lot of people's hands, and that's sad for everybody.
Well, I hope that the candidates will learn a lesson from the way Rand Paul handled it. And instead of getting hung up discussing contraception, they should really discuss murder.
That's a powerful talking point. It's a powerful talking point, and then it makes them use their own words against themselves.
Well, we are watching the candidates very carefully, and I think we've got it so, of course, we are a two-party system in this country, and I think we've got it so you can hardly run as a Republican unless you're pro-life.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
We've fixed it that way. So that's what you need to think about when you go to the polls on Election Day.
And thank you for that work.
And that was quite a struggle going over many years, but it was worthwhile because it is the key issue. There's no question about the importance of the abortion issue. It's all what you understand about life, the Constitution, and what we're standing for. We'd like to hear more from our listeners on this subject because it is a hot topic we've hadn't taken up in recent year broadcasts. So we'd like to hear from you on this.
Hey, Bridget, how do you inspire other people across the country to be like you and maybe pick up a Thrive St. Louis in another city?
And so when you say pick up, maybe even start something like that?
Pick up, start.
How many cities do have an organization like you?
You will certainly find them in all of the major cities, and you'll certainly also find them in many small towns. So the number right now is about 2,200 scattered across the United States. So it's a powerful movement.
Now, they're just counseling centers.
Many of them now are shifting, though, to a more robust model, which is Thrive St. Louis's model, which is actually we're actually providing full medical women's health care services the reason we do that, number one, is it's a good thing to do, actually providing women's health care from a faith-based paradigm, from a life-affirming paradigm, and making sure that they're hearing the truth and not a bunch of lies. But also it's extremely effective because what it does is it allows us to aggressively compete with Planned Parenthood. So young ladies are coming to us for screening. They're learning breast wellness from us, and of course they're getting pregnancy tests and ultrasounds from us. So there is a shift to make us even more aggressive and get our hat in there with the medical services as well.
Bridget Van Means visiting today with Phyllis Schlafly. If you'd like to join these ladies, the telephone lines are open on 1-800-736-3202. This is Eagle Forum Live.
The biggest scandal in education today is allowing children to be promoted from grade to grade and even graduate from high school without ever learning how to read. Schools should teach kids how to read in the first grade by a real phonics method. Parents can be easily fooled because first graders are able to memorize a few dozen one-syllable words, and then the books use those same words over and over again. How can you tell if your child is really reading, or if he's just reciting a few words he's memorized and guessing at others? Phyllis Schlafly has developed a simple reading test you can use at home to find out whether your child can actually read or is just guessing at the words. Make sure your son or daughter has every chance to succeed. Don't leave it up to the schools to teach your child this vital skill. Order your free reading test by calling 1-800-700-5228. That's 1-800-700-5228. Or see this test online at turboreader.com.
Are you worried about the future of America and the kind of country your children will be living in? Do you think that one person cannot make a difference, so why bother to write your representatives? If you think that, you need to join Eagle Forum, a national organization of conservative and pro-family men and women who have learned how to participate and be effective in the process of self-government and public policy making. Eagle Forum's achievements prove that citizen volunteers can affect government policies in Congress, state legislatures, city councils, and school boards. Our members have been successful in electing candidates at every level and in persuading them to vote for good policies after they are elected. It's obvious there is much more to do, and that's why we need your help. You can get a free sample of our materials by writing Eagle Forum, Alton, Illinois 62002. That's Eagle Forum, Alton, Illinois 62002, or by going to our website eagleforum.org. That's eagleforum.org.
You're listening to the best of Eagle Forum Live. Please do not call the number given.
We're very fortunate today to have a real expert on one of the hottest issues in our country today, which is abortion. And it is Bridget Van Means, who heads one of the nation's leading pregnancy resource centers. We thank you for being with us. And I think we've got an important email question, don't we?
We have email questions. We have callers around the country. The program is Eagle Forum Live. Right there, the voice of Phyllis Schlafly. And if you'd like to call in and talk, we're at 800-736-3202. And, of course, we field online questions at eagleforum.org, where Casey is writing in from Boston, Massachusetts. Where can I send my friends for more information about how abortion causes breast cancer? Notice how Casey says causes. Is it causal, or is it just a link at this point?
Well, I think it's important for us to take our time and camp out in this subject because it's, first of all, highly controversial. If you want to talk about a hotter topic, it's within the abortion conversation. You start bringing up abortion and the breast cancer link, and man, our opponents get mad, and I think of a hornet's nest getting hit, and they sure get
vicious. There must
vicious.
be some truth to it.
So that's what,
mad.
Yeah, I always say I call that that's a tell, like they say in poker. If you're getting that mad, there's something, we're getting close to something. So let's try to be really careful to give information that our listeners can actually just comprehend, because there's so much medical and medical fancy jargon. So let's make it really simple. There are now tens and well over 60 very, very concrete, credible studies that show a clear link between abortion and breast cancer. Now, I know about 10 years ago, our opponents really tried to refute that, and I think of the Wizard of Oz when Oz said, "Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain," and so they kind of pulled that about 10 years ago and said, "Oh, no. kind of filled the airwaves with this. No, it's nonsensical, but man, have studies come right back, and probably one every other month or so we get a very strong study. The other interesting thing is that the other countries out there that don't have a stigma around abortion, like China, they are very, very free with the data, so they're not ashamed of abortion. So, and there is no controversy around it. So they release the data, and they're having millions of abortions over there, and country after country is showing this link. So, yes, we believe, not me believing, but certainly the studies would indicate that there is a conclusive link between abortion and breast cancer, and it happens for a few different reasons. But we feel that it's our duty to make sure that in general women are aware of this link for two reasons. One, if there has been an abortion in their life, if they've had an abortion, then they should recognize that they have a higher risk. It's likely that they have a significantly higher risk of breast cancer. And so that means early detection is critical. So they really have to start doing the self-exams, the mammograms, and making sure that they are hyper vigilant about early detection, because we believe that there's a greater likelihood. The other thing is, certainly if a woman's thinking about having an abortion, she wants to put on the table, this risk. And also, if you have breast cancer in your family history, that exponentially increases. So let's take a scenario. There might be a listener or the parent of a young lady who's considering an abortion, and someone close to her in her family has had breast cancer. She really needs to heavily weigh this risk and identify that it is a concrete risk. And there's a wonderful website called abortionbreastcancerlink.org. And if you go to that, it has all of the fancy studies, and you can really just camp out and become an expert. I've certainly done that. I'm also working with APLOG, which is the American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs, and they have a wonderful section on the abortion breast cancer link as well. I'm not a doctor, but I work closely with them. And as a lay woman who has friends who have had an abortions and who's raising a daughter, I'm absolutely convinced of the link and that it's important to talk about and to know about. Just like if you're smoking, then just know you've got a higher risk. If you're going to have an abortion, it looks like you're going to have a higher risk of abortion breast cancer link.
Diane is listening in St. Louis to Ego Forum Live.
Hello, Diane. Welcome.
Hi, Phyllis. Thank you so much for taking my call. I just love your topic today. The reason for my phone call is I live out here in Cedar Hill, which is like 30 miles west of St. Louis. And out here in House Springs, which just is 8 miles east of me, we have a pregnancy care center. It's called PCT. Mm-hmm. And not only do we give the ultrasounds and counsel the young girls, but we also offer parenting classes after they decide to have the baby. And they can come and earn points at the classes and spend the points for clothing for the baby, for food, for diapers. And if they have older children, they can even buy clothing for the older children. And we are totally funded by donations only. And we are very close to the high school out here in House Springs. So we are just so proud of our organization, and we really love to hear about Thrive and everything that they're doing on the national level. But on the local level, Pregnancy Care Center is the one you need to check out.
Oh, Bridget,
Wonderful.
Do you do things like that, and do you know of other cities that do things like that?
Yes, that's the common model. In fact, we're good friends with House Springs, and the work that they're doing out there is beautiful. What we have at Thrive is what we call the parent university model. So we're not only going to come alongside her as she chooses the baby, chooses life, we're going to be with her for about 46 weeks. And during that time, just as our caller mentioned, they're going to be earning what we call baby bucks, and they're going to parenting classes.
What?
Baby bucks, like money, baby money. And so they actually earn those baby bucks by attending parenting classes, but also they're going to go through some pretty rigorous life coaching, educational prep, job readiness. Our desire is to have her be 100% independent from government programming, and that she would be a fully functioning contributor to society, not get locked into the welfare system. So we're very committed to that. And as our caller mentioned, she then can also buy, baby supplies and things that the baby's going to need. So it's really a remarkable concept.
Another caller here, Phyllis, on Ego Forum Live, 800-736-3202. Say hello to Brian in Independence.
Hi, Brian. Welcome.
Hi, how's it going? I got kind of a little weird question here for you. Now, I know there's a difference between abortion and miscarriage. Now, do you still have to go to an abortion clinic to get rid of the dead fetus, or is there other places that you go?
We would recommend if you're showing symptoms of a miscarriage that you go straight to your local ER. That's a situation that should be handled by the emergency room. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Brian, for your call.
Tariff is up next, listening in Modesto, California to Bott Radio Network. Go right ahead.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you all for what you're doing, and God bless your endeavors.
Thank you.
With Planned Parenthood getting $1.5 billion in the last few years, my goal is eventually that it will be completely defunded. But is there anything in the federal government system that places like the pregnancy centers can plug into to get funding as well?
Yeah, can you get money like Planned Parenthood?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question. When we had our President George Bush, we were able to get wonderful funding for our abstinence until marriage program. So we were funded to the tune, for instance, we had $500,000 a year to go into the public schools and give them, the kids, an alternative option, which was actually doing what God said, which was waiting until marriage to have sex. And so we're beautifully funded with that. And then one of the very first presidential acts that our President Obama took was to sever that funding. And at this point, he has locked down all federal funding to the pregnancy resource centers. I don't know do people really understand that pregnancy resource centers are very much in the crosshairs of Obama. He is not just supportive of abortion. He is a very close friend with the leaders of Planned Parenthood. He is the only standing president that has gone to their annual convention, spoken at their convention, and not only did that, but actually invoked word for word a blessing from God on Planned Parenthood for their work. So this is a man who is extremely allied very closely with Planned Parenthood, and so he makes sure that we don't get any money.
Good to have Susan listening in Lincoln, Nebraska to Ego Forum Live.
Hi, Susan. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I tuned in kind of late. I do apologize because I wanted to hear this program. I have a comment. I'm retired now, but I was a radiology tech for decades. And when I was in school, mammography was just being started. So I was there from the ground floor. And I can tell you that through decades, probably 25 years, we did take history of patients when, we were doing their mammography screenings, et cetera. I watched as it unfolded through the decades that the more abortions that were reported on these histories, the higher incidence was that there was a breast cancer.
Yeah.
And it took a while to put it all together because that information had not been out there prior, to my knowledge. But yes, sadly, I've seen women suffer, go through multiple surgeries, radiation, chemo, and it's always in their history. And nobody tells them because, first of all, the horse has already left the barn, and two, the guilt that would be involved. Not to mention probably, legal matters. But yes, I can verify firsthand there's a definite link. It's not 100%, but it's very alarming. Because you've interrupted the breast.
Well, it took a long time for the American people to accept the link between lung cancer and smoking.
Yes, absolutely. Same thing. Anyway, I just wanted to say firsthand, it's true.
Thank you so much, Susan. Can I don't know if you can stay on the line, but I would like to share what we feel are the 3 reasons why there's a link, and have you validate that if that's possible. Or I'd love to be in touch with you after the call. But we believe there are basically 3 pretty easy to understand reasons for the link. And think about it, Phyllis. There are millions of listeners right now, good Christian folks, who have chosen abortion because they were deceived. And this may be the very first time that they're hearing that they now have an elevated risk for abortion. So I just want for breast cancer. So I just want to let you know how my heart goes out to you. And I know that this can be frightening. So we're not trying to frighten you. We just want you to have good information so you can be so vigilant about early detection. So we believe there are 3 reasons. 1, and this cannot be argued, carrying a pregnancy to full term gives a measure of protection against breast cancer. God did this beautiful thing that if your very first pregnancy, when you carry that through, it actually releases a chemistry and a reconstruction of the breast that makes it much more resistant to breast cancer. So just having a baby builds in that protection. If you interrupt that pregnancy, it takes away that protection. So that's something that can't be disputed. Even the National Cancer Association will validate that.
Will a miscarriage do that too?
It appears that the effects are not quite as dramatic when you have a miscarriage. So that's a very insightful question. They're not seeing that same relationship. The other thing is that it actually leaves then the breast tissue much more volatile to a breast cancer event. So the cells themselves are just a much more volatile cell. They're larger cells. There are more of those cells, and so it makes them more susceptible to breast cancer. So when you actually hear about it and learn about it, you can really understand and get your mind around it.
This is Bridget Van Means visiting today with Phyllis Schlafly, and we're talking about the link between breast cancer, abortion, and talking about abortion in general. If you'd like to join in the conversation, the telephone line is 1-800-736-3202.
Eagle Forum Education Center in St. Louis is the headquarters of Eagle Forum's many educational activities. The center houses a large library of 20th century American history, a unique collection of DVDs and CDs, and extraordinary archives. Eagle Forum's publications include Education Reporter, bringing you important news about parents' rights and public school curriculum. Eagle Forum sponsors activities especially for college students and for teen Eagles, including an annual Collegians Leadership Summit held each summer in Washington, D.C. Eagle Forum sponsors 2 radio series, Phyllis Schlafly's 3-minute commentaries heard daily on 550 stations, and this Saturday live call-in program now heard on 75 stations. Both broadcasts are streamed on the internet at eagleforum.org. Eagle Forum, a conservative organization of dedicated Americans, invites you to visit our website at eagleforum.org.
Are you concerned about border security or about the effect that millions of illegal aliens are having on illegal drugs, crime, disease, and healthcare costs? These are only some of the many subjects of national importance covered in the Phyllis Schlafly Report, a monthly newsletter Phyllis has been writing for 42 years. The Phyllis Schlafly Report covers a lot of other subjects, too, such as education, both public school and college, court cases, family and feminism, health care, and United Nations treaties. The Phyllis Schlafly Report always gives you more facts in fewer words than anything in print. This newsletter is also useful to carry with you to share with your friends. You can get a free copy of the Phyllis Schlafly Report on a subject of your particular interest by calling Eagle Forum at 1-800-736-3202. Or you can log on to Eagle Forum's website at eagleforum.org. That's eagleforum.org.
You're listening to the best of Eagle Forum Live. Please do not call the number given.
We're talking today about abortion. Our guest is Bridget Van Means, who's made a career of running something called Thrive St. Louis, one of the nation's leading pregnancy resource centers. Let's go back to calls, Bruce.
You got it. Phyllis Schlafly, the host of Eagle Forum Live, as we work Andy into the conversation, Trenton, New Jersey.
Hi, Andy. Welcome.
Hi. You've spoken about the physical and medical harm caused by abortion, the breast cancer link, for example. Could you talk a little bit about the psychological harm caused by abortion? Have you seen data, and do you have anecdotes about the enormous psychological injuries that women suffer because they have had an abortion?
Yes, Phyllis, I don't know if you'd like to speak to that, or would you like me to? I'd be happy to.
No, I'd like you to speak to that.
Okay, and also, Andy, let's also point out that men also experience a profound amount of trauma and psychological duress from the impact of abortion.
Even though they have no say in the matter at all.
That's part of some of the pain that can come. We have had men wringing their hands in anguish at the Planned Parenthood parking lot as their girlfriends go in against their wishes and then the life of their child. So you can imagine that. The prisons who also gather data, the data shows very interestingly that there's a strong correlation between angry men in prison committing crime and being connected to an abortion experience as well. But there is something called post-abortion syndrome, which, of course, our opponents once again want to sweep under the carpet. And there are about 23 specific symptoms that we see. Andy said we could talk anecdotally, certainly that I've experienced and seen anecdotally in working with post-abortive women, but also very well documented. And then there's also very interesting data that points to a much more elevated rate of suicide with women who have had an abortion. In fact, the mortality rate for women post-abortive escalates and is very, very high. So yes, what I would say that we see without question is profound regret. The last caller talked about guilt, trying to protect the women from guilt. God forbid that they would ever figure out that their breast cancer was tied to abortion. But imagine the regret of a woman who comes to the understanding at some point in her life that she's actually ended the life of her child. And so the guilt is, for many women, almost impossible to overcome without some outside support. And then there's some, I've worked with gals who have repetitive nightmares. Certainly depression is linked to this. I've always thought about the fact that the United States has such an escalating rate of subscription medication for depression, and yet the numbers of abortions, 55 million abortions, and I've always thought about there being probably a likely link between the frequency. Why are we so depressed as a nation? Is it because we're killing our children, our own children?
Yeah,
so
I'm amazed at all this talk
overwhelming.
we hear about depression. I don't understand that at all. I'm not depressed about anything except the direction that Obama's taking our country in, but that's not personal. But do you think it's tied to remorse over killing their baby?
Well, I certainly want to be responsible, and since I don't have data in my hands, I want to be responsible and make sure that all the information remains credible. But, when you're looking at this, it's the number one prescription in our country is antidepressant medication, and we have 53 million abortion events, and we know that depression and abortion go together. So from my heart, as someone who's close to the movement, yes, I have thought that. And it might be something to think about if you're struggling with depression. Anecdotally, I had a dear friend who was being treated for depression, and she said to her psychiatrist, I've had an abortion. I just wonder if that's linked. And the psychiatrist said, oh, pshaw, that's ridiculous. Well, it did turn out that it was tied to that.
Next up on Eagle Forum Live is Lawrence, Kansas. Phyllis, this is Chris.
Hi, Chris. Welcome.
Thanks for taking my call, Phyllis. I have just one quick comment to make. This all sounds like a magnificent opening for lawsuits against the abortion industry and the education establishment for what they've done. And if the trial lawyers don't jump on this, they're missing out on a gold mine.
Well, I don't know how successful any lawsuits have been on this.
Again, it's amazing the ring of fear and trepidation around this issue. Let's be honest, our opponents are a lot meaner than we are, right? They get to do whatever they want, say whatever they want, and behave however they want. We as kingdom people don't quite have that. So they're kind of a frightening group. They get real mean. They can get real vicious. But I'll be telling you, Chris, that I am praying that at the right time, that there would be a massive class action suit against the abortion industry. We've seen such things happen in the past, and I sure would love to have 1,000 women come forward with $1 million lawsuits and file $1 billion class action suit for the suppression of all of this information. So from your mouth to God's ears.
Well, a lot of it is due to what we call the supremacist judges. They've done it to us. They did it to us by Roe v. Wade, and that's what we've been stuck with. And this whole idea that one judge or even a slight majority should be able to remake the law of our country, even the law about life and death, is just, there's something wrong with that. Of course, we're looking at the Supreme Court trying to redefine marriage now. And I just don't think that's the country of we the people we thought we were establishing with our Constitution. And so people need to be well informed. They certainly were not well informed at the time of Roe v. Wade. But there's been a tremendous amount of education since then through good organizations like yours. And you think there are organizations like yours in 20 cities around the country?
Oh, I would say every major city has them, and then probably most of anyone. If you Google your local pregnancy resource center, I bet there's one within 20 miles of wherever anybody is.
What words?
And so you could put in pregnancy resource center or pregnancy care, and you're going to probably see something pop up no matter where you are. We're probably within about 20 miles of you or right across the street sometimes.
And our people have been very, very good in trying to get the legislature to vote money for abstinence education, which teaches them to establish a good, healthy lifestyle. Sex is supposed to go with marriage. That's the idea. But school children need to be taught that. And I think even in Illinois, we just got a nice approval of an abstinence grant to go into the public schools.
Wonderful.
And a lot of our people have worked on that.
Wonderful. And was that at the state level? Was that funding at the state level?
I think they're able to cash in on some federal money by connection. I can't explain the intricacies of that.
Well, I will be looking for a contact to learn a little bit more about that. Yes.
Abstinence education.
Yep, absolutely. And it's so funny that science just keeps catching up with God, and there are beautifully compelling health-focused reasons to remain abstinent until marriage, psychological and physical well-being.
Piper in Amarillo, Texas is writing in on egoforum.org, wants to know what the most common age at which women get abortions. And by the way, would the younger the woman is when she gets the abortion increase the link between breast cancer and abortion? Does that come into play?
Interesting, very interesting question. So first answer is 19 to 24 is the most common age for abortion. And isn't it interesting that Planned Parenthood has a lock on all of our major college campuses, and pregnancy resource centers have had little, if any, presence, and so that's something that Thrive is looking to change. We have a new college-focused strategy, and we will be bringing our mobile centers to major college campuses and small community colleges and private colleges all over the United States. So now, thank God I have such friends as those at APLOG, American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs, or I could never answer that second question. But yes, the earlier that you would have a violent end to an abortion that was not completed, the longer the window of exposure to breast cancer. So certainly, the earlier that abortion event would occur would open up that window of opportunity for breast cancer. And yes, it would be more dangerous.
Quick caller here from Colorado. This is Faye listening to Ego Forum Live. Hello, Faye.
Hello, Faye.
Hi, Faye.
Hi. I'd like to share my sister's story. She's never told anyone. She had 2 late-term abortions back in the 70s. She had 1 child prior to that who is alive, and he has no idea. He had 2 brothers. She has been in a depression, has all kinds of psychological problems ever since. The father of the boys died years ago, so the son she does have and she loves dearly has no idea that, and he's never had a family Christmas, a birthday party, anything. He's been alone. And she's lived with blankets over all her doors and windows for 40 years.
We're so sorry for your pain,
your call,
Faye.
And we'll pray for her. It's the depression that must result from knowing that you killed a life. I really feel sorry for them.
Yeah, it's a profound pain.
They don't tell them about that when you go into the Planned Parenthood clinic.
And it's a shame.
Bridget Van Means visiting today with Phyllis Schlafly. Now, coming up next week, what would you do if your children lacked the opportunity for a great education? A woman decided to launch a school, and 400 students lined up to attend. Phyllis has her story next week. Join Phyllis anytime at egoforum.org.